How do you deal with conflict in a constructive manner? Today, we're talking about a unique approach to conflict resolution that teaches us to focus our energy on what we can control instead of what we can't. Welcome to Radical Conversations, where entrepreneurs share their wisdom and lessons learned to help you on your journey to success. I'm Angie Dobransky, your partner for success, and I'm here with Philip Daunt, a transformational lawyer, to talk about transforming conflict. And the answer to the question, how can we deal with conflict in constructive ways? Let's talk about that, Philip. I know you have an interesting theory about constructive ways to deal with conflict, so why don't you kick it off?
My experience tells me that conflict is an inevitable part of being human, but how we engage in conflict is a choice, and most people don't realize that. They don't realize they have a choice on how to engage in conflict. I have this tool I use with most of my clients that have developed it over the last 20 years or so, and you might find it useful. Would you be interested to learn more about it? And if they say yes, I move forward. And I tell them, I call this tool a simple question in the game of three rules. And the question I ask them is, do you believe you can change the past? Really pretty simple question. Do you believe that you can change the past? And the answer to that question, by the way, is no. None of us has a time machine.
Has anyone ever answered it yes?
Oh, yes. Yes. People think it's a trick question. They don't want to get the answer wrong. And so I have to get into this conversation about, do you have a time machine? No. And they say, well, I can change my opinion about the past. I ask them, is that the question I asked? No. Anyway, so long story short, I ask them, do you believe you can change the past? And once they say no, I congratulate them. And I tell them that's great. That means you qualify to play the game. And my experience has been the people who say no the fastest are the easiest ones to deal with. I don't know why, but that seems to be the case. The reason I call this game the game of three rules is that it only has three rules. Pretty simple. Rule number one, you choose to believe that the past is perfect for only one reason. You can't change it, because if it weren't perfect, you'd want to change it, and wanting to do something you can't do will just drive you crazy. So that means when you're playing this game, every horrible thing that's ever happened to you in your entire life is absolutely perfect. I tell them it's just the rule for a game. If I told them it was the truth, they'd really get upset. So
I think it is the truth. I've actually practiced that rule in a different way in my life. What I've always said is I have absolutely no regrets about anything that's ever happened to me in my entire life, because everything that occurred brought me to where I am today and who I am right now. And I am really good with that.
And so am I. The challenge is that most people haven't done the amount of work that you and I've done on ourselves. And if you were to tell someone this is the truth, what would happen is that they'd shut down, they wouldn't hear you, because right. It can't be true. All these horrible things have happened to me. They can't be perfect. And so the idea is to, by couching in terms of a game, it's not threatening. Because the challenge we have, I have a belief that our beliefs are the strongest things in our lives. And for example, I believe that the most important thing in most people's lives are the relationships they have with other people, but they don't really have relationships with other people. They have relationships with the stories they've created about those other people. And if you get that distinction and you understand that you're the author of that story, then you can change the relationship by simply redrafting the story.
I like applying it as a game to like any situation too, right? Because I've had conflict, something's gone wrong. I've come to see you as a lawyer. And if the first thing I say is I'm going to play this game where I pretend like the past, so whatever situation that's occurred is perfect, right? Yeah, I'm of a way different mind to solve it than if I haven't gotten there.
Absolutely, because what you end up doing is you stop focusing on what I call the shoulda, woulda, coulda conversation. Because no matter how much you gnash your teeth, you're not going to change the past one bit, so it might as well be perfect, which gives you more energy to focus on what you have control over, which is your current situation. I'll get to that in a second. So the second rule for the game is, once again, you choose to believe, and I stop and you notice I'm not telling you it's true. You choose to believe, for purposes of playing this game, that everyone always does the best he or she possibly can, given the resources they believe are available to them. Everyone, and I use this examples, Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Attila the Hun, who's ever making your life miserable.
I use this with clients a lot, particularly business owners who are frustrated with team members who aren't performing the way they want them to. And I say, you have to recognize they are trying to please you. And if they're not, it's because they don't have the tools they need to do it.
Exactly. And so the idea is that by choosing to believe that both you and everyone else are doing the best you can, given the resources you believe are available to you, it allows you to focus on what resources may be missing. Now, there's a coda to rule number 2. Just because someone's doing the best they can doesn't mean it has to work for you. For example, if you have an employee who shows up late every day, you can fire that employee, but you do it. I advise my clients to take that action through a lens made up of love and compassion and empathy and kindness and gratitude, rather than anger, resentment, and fear. It allows you you're not doing anything differently, but you're being different in the process of what you do. The conflict isn't going to go away. We will always have conflict in our lives, but who we choose to be in the process of the conflict has a huge impact on it. Now, so I have this belief that my current definition of conflict is it's a state of being that results from having unmet expectations. Okay? A state of being that results from having unmet expectations. And those expectations are in our minds. We've generated those expectations. Those expectations are stories we've created about how the future should be, or how the current moment should be.
Or how the other person is thinking, or what the other person thinks of us, or all of that.
And
We've a lot of stories.
And when you're dealing with the part of the story that has to do with someone else's behavior, you're talking about something you have no control over. So the idea about the game of 3 rules is to get you to focus on what you do have control over. So the past is perfect. Everyone does the best they can. I get to decide whether or not someone else's best, or even my own best, works for me. The third rule is I choose to believe once again that I am alone on this planet, 100% responsible for my current situation and for changing it if I choose to do so. Not 50%, not 95%, but 100% responsible. That's the whole game. The idea, though, is what that game does is it allows me to focus on what I have control over.
Right, what you can change, instead of focusing our effort, as we started out with, because a lot of us do this, we spend a lot of time worrying about what we cannot change and being frustrated by it.
And that's to use another analogy, that's a hole without any cheese. So what I've discovered is when I teach the game of 3 rules to my clients, and I say to them, look, take your legal problem, bring it into the game. Just bring it into the game, and then experience your legal problem inside the game. Does it feel any different? And they always say yes.
And I would say you can take all problems into the game, right? So it's not just legal problems, right? You can take your business problem, you can take your frustration with your team members, you can take that,
you can take your
customers, you can take your
with your spouse and with your children.
Take them into the game and see what happens.
And what ends up happening is that, I'll give you an example. Whenever I'm pissed off about something or frustrated about something, if I think about it, it's the result of me violating one of the 3 rules. I've either forgotten that the past is perfect, I've forgotten that everyone does the best they can, or I've forgotten that I'm 100% responsible. And the game allows me to get back to the center, to get back into my sweet spot of power, where I focus on what I have control over. And what I have control over is the R in the E plus R equals O formula. I get to focus on how I choose to respond to whatever stimulus is out there. And most people don't think about that. So part of the purpose of the game of 3 rules is to get people to start thinking, whoa, if I were to simply change my attitude about something, simply change my perspective about something, the situation changes. That allows you to then take control over your life at a much higher level. Since I started playing the game of 3 rules, and for me, it's been about 2 decades now. I mean, my life has become extraordinarily better.
Control of my life, I think, at a very young age. Like I didn't have parents who were really helping me the way I needed to be helped. And so only by taking responsibility for myself did I open all of the doors, right? And why would I ever give up that control?
Well, and at the same time, the only person you have control over is you. Every morning when I wake up, I ask myself the same question. Philip, who do you choose to be today? And I made up the answer. I choose to be powerful, loving, compassionate, and kind, right? Powerful, loving, compassionate, and kind. And I've been saying that to myself for years and years and years. And what's ended up happening is I've become more powerful, more loving, more compassionate, and more kind. The only way to judge yourself is by results, often harsh, but always fair. And so if you look at your life and you see results that aren't what you want, the only person whose job it is to change those results is you. So if you don't like what you have, change. If you don't like who you are, change. Just change.
Be
Change.
someone else, right?
And so what the Game of Three Rules is basically, it's a recipe for making different choices.
Yes.
And if you try on these choices, most people will not have made the choice to believe that the past is perfect, that everyone does the best they can. They get to decide what works for them or what doesn't work for them, and that they're 100% responsible for their current situation and for changing it if they choose to do so. But if you try that on for a bit, even in a hypothetical situation, what you'll notice is an increased clarity of your life and a freedom that comes from being responsible, for choosing to be responsible, choosing to hold yourself responsible for the choices you've made, and for noticing that the situation you're in right now is the result of choices you've made in the past. If you don't like your current situation, all you have to do is make different choices. It's a very short book.
It is, except then there's this whole, the rest of the book that is all of the excuses that people have for not making the change, right? Because change is hard.
Right. And so the response to that is just no excuses. No yes, but. No yes, buts.
Yes, and.
Yes, and. No yes, buts. Just yes, and. Yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, that was a great conversation. So let's remind everybody the 3 rules are: choose to believe the past is perfect for the simple reason that you cannot change it. Choose to believe that everyone always does the best they can given the resources available to them at the time, and choose to believe that you are 100% responsible for your current situation and for changing it if you want to. Philip Daunt is a transformational lawyer. He helps clients transform their legal problems into opportunities for personal growth and positive change. You can learn more about him at pjdlaw.com. And I'm Angie Dobransky, your partner for success. If you're ready to take your business to the next level, book a call with me on my website at www.guidestrategic.com.